there was a rumor back in the day that Game was a stripper.
Ain't no rumor.
So you know, Game was. Wait, was Game there stripping?
There ain't no rumor. There ain't no rumor.
Me and Game's mom, we started a male exotic club. Jayceon danced there maybe twice, and 50 Cent will not let him forget it.
He says a lot of people's names for shock value. He says things he doesn't mean. He says a lot of things and take it back. You know, he had issues with Joe Buttons, then he runs into him in a club and they're taking pictures. He had issues with Memphis Bleak, then he ran into Memphis Bleak. In Miami, it was no problem. See, I'm not a fake person. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. He has a lot of inconsistencies.
Eminem is the only rapper that nobody ever wants a problem with, including myself, man. Eminem is like the most lyrically insane. He's one of the good MCs. And I used to think Eminem was better than me. He's not.
If he were to come at you with like a industry beef, what would you have done?
Run. Eminem is you don't understand. I'm a hip hop artist and I'm one of the biggest ones in the world. You don't want a beef with Eminem.
Sadida says that JT cries at the drop of a hat and is more smothering than a WWF death grip.
Aubrey's and white ceilings, despite feeling the right feeling is to conceal white lies confined in the ceiling of a red Rolls. The once leader of the West Coast, who kinda claimed he met Pac at the height of death row, capped his way through court to almost be dead broke. The best vote for biggest BS or non-fact teller in the game. The Game. Jayceon Taylor, there ain't a liar greater, so let me supply the flavor of this cap compilation. And while you're stationed watching and making observations, I hope that you're placing big ramifications on the like and subscribe buttons for my creative creation.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living. I study
Red Rose, white ceiling.
Now, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, since the beginning of time, Jayceon Taylor, aka The Game, has flexed his amazingly creative skills to the world. Whether that's through his impeccable pen, or the fan fiction, Marvel superhero comic book type stories that you hear him tell every time it's time to start a new album rollout. One era he's dissing 50 Cent and G-Unit, the next era he's making petitions to try and convince 50 to do a reunion with him. One era the whole album's produced by Dr. Dre, the next era it's F Dr. Dre, and Kanye West did more in 2 weeks of The Game's career than Dr. Dre did throughout The Game's entire career.
I've had a change of heart.
But the era before that, The Game made an entire song about effing Kim Kardashian and grabbing her by the throat. And the era before that was supposed to be his last album, but we've gotten 4 albums since then. And on the most recent album, he made a 10-minute diss track against Eminem, even though years before he said Eminem was a rapper he would never go at. He's also said he would never go at Jay-Z, but then he spent an entire album rollout dissing Jay-Z. And most recently, of course, The Game made headlines for stepping into the Drake and Kendrick beef to defend Drake's honor, as a result getting banned from Kendrick's pop-out concert, which celebrated the entire West Coast. And now The Game is rolling out a brand new album, doing interviews, giving us some brand new cap about how he was planning on signing Kendrick Lamar when he was still K-Dot. It's always a lot of cap sprinkled in with a little bit of truth. And no, we're not just talking about the Kendrick situation. We're going to go through the entire history of The Game capping, from the moment he left his mother's womb to likely the moment he'll be in a tomb.
Red
Womb, white tomb. Hopefully that's in many, many years from now and he lives a happy, long life full of a lot of cap. We're going to review it all, but what I mean by there's always a little bit of truth sprinkled in with the cap is The Game is telling the story of how he was around in the early TDE days when they were trying to push J-Rock as the main superstar off of the label. Kendrick, known at the time as K-Dot, was J-Rock's hype man. They both went out on tour with The Game. This is all true, but what's not true, but just sounds good on paper today, is that The Game actually wanted to sign Kendrick, as if he was the visionary way back in 2005, and he was the only one that could truly see it. He says he was begging Top Dog to give him K-Dot as an artist. Top Dog said no.
But I always knew. So in the beginning, I would be going, in the beginning of my career, I'd be going by Top Dog's house and just, helping him with J-Rock stuff and lending my, 2 cents, since I was a little bit, ahead of the curve than from where they were. And I was always asking Top, I was like, yo, let me get Dot.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, no. And so He knew what he was. I knew what he was.
So when you say let me get Dot, are you talking about let me get him as an artist or as a feature?
Let me get him as an artist because I already knew.
Yeah.
I knew what he was gonna be.
Now, how do we know this is cap? Well, take it from Game himself, who had said in an interview like 15 years ago that before Kendrick Lamar formed into Kendrick Lamar and he was still K-Dot, the Game still had his doubts about who Kendrick was as an artist. Doesn't exactly sound like someone you'd want to sign.
I've been knowing Kendrick since he was, first starting off in hip hop. I took him around the world with me, man, on my tour and let him, him and J-Rock was doing their thing with Top Dog opening up, and it's really dope to see, hard work pay off. Somebody that I helped, shape and mold. I remember when I told K-Dot that K-Dot wasn't gonna work and that he should just change his name to Kendrick, and he did that, and next thing you know, it's aftermath and people are checking. Bitches are like, Kendrick. You know what I'm saying? But Kendrick is like our West Coast Nas, so to speak.
Why the name switch?
I just felt like, the artist that I wanted to be was somebody that, that people can actually feel and relate to.
Mm-hmm.
You dig what I'm saying? With the story about me growing up in the whole city, I feel like, the best artists in the world is people that, actually gravitate toward their story and actually can say, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what, I want to wake up. I woke up one morning, I said, the best thing I can do is start giving these people me is, giving them my name and what my moms call me rather than what the homies call me.
That's right.
K-Dot.
Mm-hmm.
Homies call me that. That's when I grew up in the neighborhood in Compton. My mom's called me Kendrick, straight up, Kendrick Lamar.
And Kendrick himself also has a song from 2009 called Last Real Guy Alive, where basically 15 years ago he confirms that the Game today in 2025 is straight capping because he says, 2 weeks ago I finally ran into the guy I gave my mixtape to and said he was partners with the Game. The guy finally told me what the Game said. He said he didn't like it.
I finally run into the nigga I gave my mixtape to, said he was partners with Game. The nigga finally told me what he said. He said he didn't like it.
Does all this sound like a guy who wanted to sign Kendrick Lamar back in the day, before he was Kendrick Lamar, or is it just a convenient thing to say today because he is Kendrick Lamar? I mean, Kendrick Lamar's bodyguard, 2 T's, you guys probably remember him from the Like That verse, got 2 T's with me, I'm snatching chains, burning tattoos. He came out and he barely speaks, and he even had to say this is straight cap. Even the Game's former manager, Wack 100, got pressed on the issue and had to plead the fifth, so he wouldn't make his own artist look like the biggest capper in the industry.
Hey, Wack.
What up?
All right, look, we talking about this. The artist went on the thing talking about that he tried to sign Kendrick Lamar, right?
Who? What are you talking about? You talking about Game?
Yeah, hold up, Terrell, you explain it, because
You have to remember, and I think Terrell gonna agree with this. You wasn't around back in them days.
When they had GDE, I was around.
No,
yeah.
we talking about before J-Rock even had the feature with Wayne and all that shit.
Yeah, I was around with my brother Q. I was around.
But whatever him and Top Dog conversation was, I can call Top. I don't.
Well, we can call him too.
Y'all know Top. I do know Top at one point in time had kind of wanted to do a joint venture. I don't know if it was with Rock. I don't know if it was with, but that only Top could Top and 2 T's could speak on that because 2 T's was gang security. And 2 T's always been who he is at top.
And 2 T's spoke on it. He said blood is lying. He never wanted to sign Kendrick Lamar.
Okay, so if 2 T's spoke on it, why you calling me about it?
Hold up, Wack.
I can only speak on what I did for Kendrick Lamar.
What you do, Wack?
Well, I'm the first put him on New York radio. First nigga put him on a New York stage. But a lot of I did that for because I had the K-Slate plug. And Top, if you listen to it, when I called him from No Jumper, he told Adam, Wack gave me the keys to New York. So that's what that was. But other than that, I don't know what Top and Game discussed. 2 T's would know because 2 T's was always the go-between to that. So if 2 T's said that, that's what 2 T's said. I ain't talked to Top about that. But what difference do it make? Because that's still a TDE movement regardless.
Once 2 T's came in there and he commented, I feel like, hey, that's what it is. Now you have to argue
We
it.
both know 2T's don't really do social media, but like I said, I'm gonna call Top today and ask him now. I see that it's floating. I do know at one point in time that it was conversations of trying to do a joint venture. I don't know if it was just overall. Probably back then, let's keep it real, J-Rock was the topic. You know what I'm saying? It was about J-Rock back then. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if he approached him about that. I just called Top direct and that. But if 2T's said that shit, then there's probably some validity behind it. But then again, it's a little bad blood with those two. You know what I'm saying? I just called Top. I'm gonna hit him right now and ask him. He'll tell me.
Now, of course, Kendrick Lamar and the Game, they have a long history. Both coming up under the Dr. Dre umbrella, you could say Kendrick Lamar became everything that the Game wanted to and could have been. And that's why there's a lot of jealousy and temper tantrums that still get harbored there. We'll touch on that later in this video.
Can't nobody in Compton out rap Game. Can't nobody in Compton out rap. Yeah, Kendrick, my nigga. Kendrick do his shit. I love that nigga to death. I love Kendrick to death, but I flew past Kendrick when that nigga was on foot in a Range Rover and showed him how to do this shit. Hardest in Compton, rapping, lyricist, me.
As I do with every single Game video I make, I gotta start with a little precursor in that I think the Game is one of the best rappers of the 21st century. He's got a classic and multiple 8 to 9 out of 10 albums within his catalog, and that catalog can go toe-to-toe with, I would say, 95% of major rappers from, again, the 21st century, the 2000s. He's no doubt a West Coast legend, but he's also a legendary liar. Has been from the beginning of time. Like I said before, from the womb to the tomb. It's a funny one for you guys today, Lobbies and Gentlegrams. So with that said, let's take it all the way back. Oh man, you can't make this up. Literally as I'm recording this video, I had all my notes laid out here and everything. I checked Twitter. The first thing I see is the Game is in the club yelling free R. Kelly and free Diddy. Like I said before, you guys, it's album promo time, right? Documentary 3 on the way. Time to say the craziest, most outlandish crap you possibly could.
Hey, since nobody else ain't gonna say it, hey man, free Kells. Free Diddy. Some baby oil and some PP. Free or not. It's my birthday. I don't see nothing wrong with freeing the guys.
You'll see there's a constant pattern of the Game not being able to handle his liquor, and that gets him into trouble. But let's go all the way back for real this time. So we gotta take it back to the golden era of the West Coast, the mid-90s when Pac was running the Game, and of course, the Game himself was right there with him.
Cap.
Wait, what? How does this picture exist? Who photoshopped this? This was posted in, like, 2012. Who had the Photoshop capabilities to make something look this realistic? Unless the Game paid a professional to create this. Anyways, the way we'll progress this video is we'll assume the Game is not lying this entire time, right? So for all we know in our naive minds, the Game got his introduction into rapping in the late 90s when he was hanging around his good friend Tupac. And of course, when he posted this picture, he said, RIP to one of the realest guys to ever do it. Ain't no me without you in this game. The effect you had on the world will forever be appreciated. Your music, your words, your love, your encouragement, your existence in a world full of misguided youth will never be forgotten. I am a better person, poet, and friend and father because of the lessons learned through your music. Again, at first glance, you would think that the Game was really chilling with Tupac back in the day, but that would be your first glance of cap from Mr. JC. Now, although the Game wasn't actually an affiliate of Tupac, of course we know he did end up associating himself with Pac's iconic death row collaborator, Dr. Dre. But before we get to that, before the Game was rapping, what was his profession, you might be asking?
Red Rose, white cap.
Aside from chilling with Tupac in the mid-90s, what was he doing on a day-to-day? Well, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, before it was red rolls, white ceiling, it might have been red poles, thighs kneeling, alright? Because the Game might have been a stripper. Huh? Allegedly. But these were the rumors that were circulating at one point. When he was beefing with 50, which we'll touch on later in this video, I mean, let's just say that Tupac picture was not the only time that the Game was victim of a bad Photoshop. Because yeah, as you guys can see, someone took this picture of the game, where he had a tongue ring, by the way, and photoshopped it onto an actual stripper's body. Now, that doesn't mean that the game was not a male stripper. It just means that this picture was fake. Because the game's stepfather, I believe, someone who was at one point involved romantically with the game's mother, Hodori Sababu, sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, he did a little tour of Compton with Pitchfork back in 2013, and he documented how him and the game's mom opened up a male exotic strip club. They would recruit a lot of guys who just got out of prison, usually guys who had been working out a lot in the can, and apparently, according to him, the game did work a couple shifts at this club, popping booty before he was a rapper.
Me and Game's mom, we started a male exotic club. We used to get guys that's just come fresh out of jail. You know, they was buffed up and they needed money. A lot of these guys can't go and fill out an application and get a job, but hey, they look good, they've been working out. We put them on, man. We get them $1,000 a week dancing. JCon danced there maybe twice. And 50 Cent will not let him forget it. And somehow, somebody got pictures of him dancing in that club with his G-string on, and boy.
There'd be another dude, Lonzo Williams, who would corroborate this story, saying that he also worked with the game's mother at this male exotic stripper dance club. And he claims it wasn't a rumor. He says Game was really out there stripping. For good money, though.
There was a rumor back in the day that Game was a stripper.
Ain't no rumor.
Do you know? Game was... Wait, was Game there stripping?
There ain't no rumor. There ain't no rumor.
Now, I'm sure, as you guys can guess, the game would go on to deny this, saying, "This guy, not even my stepfather, he got out of jail, and because I didn't give him any money, he goes and does an interview line with the same stripper story. You think that BS is gonna end me? Come on, man." But there was some interesting things going on at this point in the game's life, whether he was stripping or not. I mean, firstly, he claims he was shot. Maybe we'll look into that more later, but it seems like it was cap, because at one point he says he's in a coma, at one point he doesn't. On his debut album, The Documentary, he starts it off rapping, "I woke up out that coma 2001, right around the same time Dr. Dre dropped 2001. If you guys know anything about 2001 by Dr. Dre, you know it didn't drop in 2001. So the timeline's all messed up, but we'll look at that later, because the game had some funny stuff, to say the least, going on before he actually linked up with Dr. Dre. I mean, firstly, he was saying him and Diddy were very close before Game signed to Aftermath, and it was actually Diddy who introduced Game to Dr. Dre. But Diddy and Game didn't have a lot of time to record music together because they were too busy partying and shopping together.
I started kicking it with Diddy. I ran around with Diddy for 2 years, and this Diddy, we never went to the studio one time, but he was like, "Yo, I fuck with your demo, that shit, you know, bad boy, but hey, Playboi, hey, here go a watch, Playboi, here go a chain, Playboi." I'm like, "Yo, we ever gonna rap?" Like, nah.
Y'all was doing it for 2 years.
Yo, but the jet leaves at 5. We going to Miami, Playboi. We going to, you know what I'm saying? We going to New York. We in ATL this weekend, Playboi, pop out. And I was going everywhere with Diddy, and then one day this Diddy, he like, "You know what I've been thinking? You belong with Dr. Dre."
Now, a lot of these stripper rumors, of course, surfaced once the game started beefing with 50 Cent, which again we'll touch on shortly in this video. However, if you guys are doubting for a second, then the game's mom did own a strip club. Whether or not the game was actually a dancer in it, another thing that resurfaced during the game's beef with 50 Cent was the fact that he was getting emotionally abused on live television before he actually became a rapper. He was on this reality TV show where him and this other guy swapped girlfriends for a day to kind of see if that would help or destroy their relationship. Crazy concept, I know.
I want to be with my girl all day, every day.
I can't be with him 24/7. I'm sorry.
Sadida couldn't keep a promise if her life depended on it.
So what?
I can't get no loving in public.
No affection.
No holding
Because
hands,
it seems
no
like you
kiss,
always
no...
gotta.
And essentially, aside from this show exposing that maybe there was a very soft interior to the game's hard exterior, pause, that he would display in his rap music just a couple years later. And that's not an exaggeration. This is like an entirely different person from this reality TV show to his debut album just like 2-3 years later. But aside from that, the girl who he actually took on a date for this reality TV show says the game actually brought her to his mother's male strip club. And not only that, while they're watching this naked man dance and sprinkle oil everywhere, let's just say, the game looked at her and said, "That's nothing. Wait until you see my moves."
He said that he wanted me to meet his mom at his mom's club. I didn't know it was a strip club.
Oh, hello.
I walked in, I saw this butt-naked man pouring something all down the front of his chest, in front of me just dancing something. And he made a little comment that he was going to show me what he has later on.
Oh, really?
Spicy.
Oh man, you guys, this is bad. And this show gets worse, alright? The game was absolutely manhandled on this thing. I mean, it's miraculous that, again, just a year or two later, he was able to do a complete 180 and turn himself into this tough gangster rolling with 50 Cent when this is what he was doing just a year prior. And I mean, I'm not saying Game is not a gangster, alright? That's not one of the lies I'm talking about here, but there was definitely a personality change, to say the least, while the Game was trying to find his footing into Hollywood.
Sadita says that JT cries at the drop of a hat and is more smothering than a WWF death grip. Were you happy with the looks?
Yes, he is very sexy. He has perfect teeth. He has this nice nose that I don't always have to stare at his nose all the time. That's all I look at when I see him, his nose.
Hey, better a big nose
Big snouzer.
than a milk dud head.
I hear you.
He's a scrub. He doesn't have a car.
My heart is with Sadita, so that's...
So you say stay together. Arena, sorry things didn't work out for you.
I've had to change of heart.
Change your heart.
So guys, ultimately, while it's unconfirmed whether the Game was actually ever dancing on the pole, by 2004 he most definitely had the world dancing. Now, it's interesting because amidst all the lies that the Game has told throughout his career, you might think he just learned how to up the antics, how to beef with everyone for publicity through his mentor or the guy who ushered him into the Game, 50 Cent. But it was actually quite the opposite. See, as many beefs as 50 Cent has been a part of, 50 values authenticity and loyalty. So when he was tasked by Dr. Dre to show the Game loyalty and develop him as an artist, that's exactly what 50 did. See, the Game wasn't initially 50's artist, but regardless of that, once he signed to G-Unit, 50 Cent made a lot of sacrifices for the Game to have a flourishing career. Number one. Well, I should say lie number one. The Game says that just months after he woke up from his coma in 2001, Dr. Dre had already signed him. This is where the story already gets confusing, but I'm not going to delve too deep into the timelines. Just know that, for a fact, by late 2003, the Game was already under Dr. Dre's wing. The Game was already
in a red rose, white ceiling.
What else happened in the middle of 2003? 50 Cent releases Get Rich or Die Trying, his massive debut album. Now, 50 Cent is going through the roof, but the thing is, Dr. Dre has a hard time marketing the Game. So he decides to pair him up with what's quickly becoming the hottest record label in the industry in G-Unit. Because again, G-Unit was under Aftermath and Interscope, Dr. Dre's umbrella. 50 Cent says, sure, Dr. Dre, I'll take this guy under my wing. They start cooking up, and according to 50 Cent, him and the Game actually only spent 5 days in the studio together. But of course, what comes out of that session is magic. Now, another sacrifice 50 Cent took, aside from just bringing the Game, this West Coast artist, kind of a different sound, onto 50 Cent's New York heavy roster, and aside from the fact that 50 Cent had now stopped working on his own album to start working on the Game's album, is 50 had actually also sacrificed releasing his own album in order to start the Game's run. See, at the time, 50 Cent's next album, The Massacre, was actually supposed to be titled The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and the Game was planning for his debut album to be called NWA Volume 1. Now, given that 50 Cent's album was supposed to be called The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, it was actually supposed to release on February 14th, 2005, Valentine's Day. But 50 ended up pushing it back, not just so that the Game could get his proper shine, but 50 had also taken several tracks off of the Massacre's track list and given them to the Game for his own album, including Red Rolls, White Ceiling, and the biggest hits off the project. We'll get to that shortly, and I was joking about Red Rolls, White Ceiling. But before 50 was actually able to give Game his first few hits, Game was struggling to catch a buzz, so he drops a mixtape with a couple songs that were meant for his debut album, but didn't make the final track list. As you can see, the final song on this mixtape was actually a Dr. Dre detox leftover called Get Your Money Right that featured Jay-Z. The Game added a verse onto it, slapped it on this September 2004 mixtape, didn't ask Jay-Z for permission to clear it. Keep in mind, this is when Jay-Z is about a year into retirement, and while this mixtape wasn't the flame that really lit the Game into superstardom, you can tell that Dr. Dre was giving the game some of his best stuff from Detox and just the stuff he had cooking up within the Aftermath camp as a whole. And that was no more apparent than on the game's breakout single, How We Do. With the production laced by Dr. Dre, the hook done by 50, this was the holy grail of stimulus packages, and this shot the game up to a whole other level. But before he actually released that track, he released another Dr. Dre and 50 Cent stimulus package in the song West Side Story. This was actually the first single off of the documentary, released in September of 2004, the same month as that mixtape that the game released. And on that song, the game raps, "I don't do button-up shirts or drive Maybachs." Or drive
red rose, white ceiling.
People thought this was a dig at Jay-Z because, of course, he rocked button-up shirts and drove Maybachs. The game had actually caught wind that people thought this was a shot at Jay-Z, and he actually clarified on a separate song off the documentary album that that was actually a shot for Ja Rule, not Jay-Z. He said he would never go at Jay-Z, but in fact, that was cap. Because between the game using that Jay-Z Dr. Dre feature for his mixtape, and then possibly dissing Jay-Z with that button-up shirts and Maybach line, about a month after the game's debut, the documentary is released, Jay-Z goes up with Rockefeller to Hot 97 to spit a freestyle in February of 2005. In that freestyle, he starts it off by warning rappers that if they put his verses on their albums without Jay's permission, he's charging them 700%. And then throughout the freestyle that he spits, it's riddled with different plays on words of the word game. So between him directly referencing the fact that the game used his verse without clearing it, and the fact that he's centering this entire freestyle around game, people were assuming obviously that he's taking shots at the game.
Yo, I swear, if y'all put my verse on y'all records and all that, I want 700%. Playing the games, I'm seeing the thing through.
Now, once the game caught wind of this freestyle, he actually reached out to 50 Cent, and apparently on February 10th, 2005, he calls 50 and asks him what he should do. 50 tells Game, don't do a thing, let me reach out to Jay and kind of settle this whole thing, because again, you have to realize the game is like a month or two into releasing his debut album. Jay-Z is a powerful figure in the industry and just a massive rapper in general. You don't want a guy like that coming at you when you just made your first footing into the game. No pun intended. And 50 Cent, obviously running the record label, he had to be the one to put in these type of calls to cool the whole situation down.
He had a situation with Jay-Z when he had issues with Jay, and I got a phone call from him. He was in Amsterdam when he called me back in the States, and I told him, I said, just sit tight, let me see exactly what it's about. You know, I'll get in contact with Jay and see how, really what it is. And before I could get back to him, he went on stage and told everybody to suck him off.
So as you can see, he tells the game, don't diss Jay-Z, let's kill this situation before it escalates. But what does the game do? Before 50 Cent could even get back to him, he goes on stage that night in Amsterdam, disses Jay-Z and all of Rockefeller.
I like telling people stuff like that. It make me feel good. I feel fucking say name is Cole, Jay-Z, or Jigga Man, or none of that shit. I'm straight the out of Compton, and I'm a with a motherfucking attitude. Let's cross all the streets now. Please get up, please get up, Jay-Z get up, Rockefeller get up,
And now you could see, at this point, 50 Cent is going out on the line, trying to protect Game, gifting him his biggest hits, pulling him out of beefs with the biggest rappers in the world. The Game, keep in mind, is beefing a bunch of other smaller rappers at the same time he's beefing Jay-Z, like Yuckmouth, Joe Budden, Memphis Bleak, etc. He has no problem beefing, is my point. Neither does 50, of course, because he had all his issues with Ja Rule. He had issues brewing up at this point with Nas, Jadakiss, Fat Joe. But this is where the bigger problems come into play. Because after all the loyalty that 50 showed Game was now making an attempt to walk back those statements that he made on Jay-Z, trying to deny that, he ever really wanted beef with Jay. But at the same time, he says, for whatever reason, not only do I not have a problem with Jay, but I also don't have a problem with Jadakiss, Fat Joe, etc., naming a bunch of people that 50 Cent directly has beef with now. And how does that look when 50 Cent is pushing back his album for you? He's giving you all these hits. He's giving you this massive platform being on G-Unit. He's trying to stop you from shooting yourself in the foot beefing with Jay-Z. But meanwhile, you don't listen to him. You go out, you're dissing Jay-Z on stage. And now to make matters worse, you're trying to emphasize to the world that you have no problems with anyone 50 Cent has problems with, even though you're standing right next to him and he's doing all of these favors for you. It's fake, and 50 Cent would expose this fakeness just a couple days later in a radio interview live on air, publicly stripping the game's G-Unit title away, while also putting a magnifying glass on the fact that there was a lot of caps in Game's come up. From the fact that the biggest hits off of the documentary were actually written by 50 Cent, or the fact that the Game will say a lot of stuff for shock value, when in reality he doesn't really mean any of it.
I read where you said Game was about to be dropped from Aftermath Interscope before you got involved. That's true?
Yes, it was absolutely the truth.
How did that transpire?
Creatively, the tires got stuck in the mud, you know, and you know what I mean? So we actually got together. I recorded 6 records on Game's new album.
Right.
I did West Side Story, How We Do, Hated to Love It, Church for Thugs, Special, and Higher. You see what I'm saying? And he came back recently from overseas and was disrespectful, man. Like the way he's like, it's like he's feeling himself, like because of how well his record is selling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I you know, openly I wouldn't expose what I did for the project, but I wrote those records. I created the concept of those records and he rapped around it. He's a great rapper. He's not a good songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
There's a difference.
It's a major difference. You know?
Yeah.
And he says a lot of people's names for shock value. He says things he doesn't mean. He says a lot of things and take it back.
Uh-huh.
He says, you know, he had issues with Joe Buttons. Then he runs into him in a club and they're taking pictures. He had issues with Memphis Bleak. Then he ran into Memphis Bleak in Miami. It was no problem.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? See, this is the truth. You know what I mean? The facts. This is the same facts that I talked about on Piggy Bank. See, I'm not a fake person. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. You see what I'm saying? And for me, he has a lot of inconsistencies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's incredible that he would come back and forget how much I've done for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, personally. You know what I'm saying?
So where does he stand as far as Junior is concerned right now?
Across the street or around the corner. He's not in my camp.
Not at all?
No way.
Okay.
Not after being that disrespectful. And at the same time, it's the same thing, like, for me, I love Dr. Dre. The same way I love Eminem.
Well, why did you and Game get into a shoving match?
We ain't never been in a shoving match.
No, that's not true?
That's what you say to sound good.
Okay.
That's what you say to look good. You see what I'm saying? That never happened, hey? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's things that they say that are inconsistent. Like, I really don't understand what made him do that. Like, really, what's on your mind?
Now, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, it's no secret that Kendrick Lamar left some injuries on the emotions of your favorite pop star after that rap battle.
I study rap battles for a living.
But speaking of injuries, we gotta talk about America's largest injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan's team of lawyers have been fighting to make sure people like you, who may have suffered an injury, will get what you deserve. If you get hurt in a car accident, or at work, or if an insurance company tries to lowball you, Morgan & Morgan is the largest injury law firm in the US that will fight to get you the money you might be owed. They have over 1,000 attorneys, offices in all 50 states, and they've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. For example, one of their clients in Florida got $12 million after a work accident, even though their insurance company was only ready to offer $350,000. So when you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like bringing in a legal army, and their fee is free unless they win your case. If you want them to evaluate your injury case for free today to see if you qualify for their legal support, you can check out the link in the description, the pinned comment, or the QR code you see on the screen. Now, what 50 Cent says here would end up foreshadowing a lot of what we would see from the Game's career going forward. And I think no situation emphasizes that more than, 17 years later? Dr. Dre is asked to celebrate his legacy and the artists he brought into this game on the Super Bowl halftime show stage in Los Angeles, California in 2022. The Game's hometown, the Game's mentor in Dr. Dre, and his original boss at the record label, 50 Cent, they're all on stage, celebrating a legacy that was pivotal in the Game's initial come-up, but the Game was missing. On that stage, you had Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar. Some would say the heir to the West Coast throne after the Game. The Game would probably say it himself. Well, he did say it himself when he passed Kendrick the torch at the House of Blues with Snoop Dogg way back in 2011, signifying the fact that he was acknowledging a new force was to be reckoned with and carry on the legacy of the West Coast for the next generation.
We watching you rock like a motherfucker, right? And we watching Game pass the torch to you. We watching all this love. It's a beautiful thing, my nigga. You great at what you do. You ain't good at what you do. You great at what you do. And the people out here, they represent and they showing you that. So, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna mean this. You got the torch, nigga. You better run with that motherfucker. You better run with it, because it's yours.
Now you might think, alright, the game is embracing Kendrick Lamar here, but this was before Kendrick Lamar became the Kendrick Lamar we know today. Now, on a side note, ironically, I actually do think the first time I ever heard Kendrick was on a Game album. In 2011, the Red album, Kendrick killed his feature on the song The City. So I'm definitely not denying that the Game actually brought some eyeballs to Kendrick Lamar, but it was how he reacted after Kendrick Lamar catapulted and surpassed Game's level of superstardom that the Game started acting kind of funny. The first sign came in 2012 when Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar were both on the XXL magazine cover, with the caption reading, "Dr. Dre brings us hip-hop's next big star," after Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and 50 Cent, noticeably leaving out the Game's name. Now, the Game actually went off on XXL about this.
What kind of pissed me off is that I felt like I rocked with Double XL even throughout the beginning of my career. I kind of rode against the source. I seen this cover with I think it was Kendrick on it or something, but it was like, you know, the guy that sold Tillman Records was just missing. Just felt that was a little disrespectful to me in my career, and you know, the relationship could go either way from here.
So as you can see, right, like these little subtle signs of jealousy came early on in Kendrick's career, since the Game was probably looking at this like, crap, if I maybe didn't run my mouth so much, I would be in this position that Kendrick is now in, where I'm Dr. Dre's protege. That's of course everything the Game ever wanted. I mean, I forgot to even mention before, once he got dropped from Aftermath and G-Unit, he was pushed onto the sister label, the smaller label over at Interscope called Geffen, and he still named his second album The Doctor's Advocate because he wanted to show the world that even though 50 Cent wasn't riding with him, Dr. Dre still was, and he was speaking on Dr. Dre's behalf, all for, in the end, the album to feature no Dr. Dre production, even though the Game said it would, because ultimately, Dr. Dre ended up riding for 50. Because he probably realized ultimately that all the issues between Game and 50 started from Game's lack of loyalty and his capping. And speaking of those issues, it's crazy to me that still in 2025, the Game is on stages saying F 50 Cent, yes, in the big 2025, and can't accept the fact that the biggest hits off the documentary were written by 50 Cent. So now he gets online capping, implying that he was around when they recorded What Up Gangsta, one of 50's most iconic songs, and the Game claims he played a massive part in the actual creation of that track. He wasn't even around for it.
They say all kind of stuff about, like, he said he wrote What Up Gangsta.
What Up Gangsta, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, bro. He wasn't even around when we did that. Like, that was before you even came into the picture. He didn't even...
Come into after that.
Yeah, we didn't even know who he was to after. There's a point where desperation, where you say anything.
But anyways, let's keep this on Dr. Dre. Forget about 50 Cent. If you guys want a full breakdown of all the issues between the Game and 50, drop a comment. But realize that it kind of almost stemmed from the Game's unprovoked beef with Jay-Z. So the irony is that after literally decades of trying to get Jay-Z's attention, to get Jay to start rapping back at him, Jay-Z sent the ultimate diss over to the Game when he picked Dr. Dre to orchestrate that Super Bowl performance. Again, I listed you guys off everyone who was on that stage, and it's very reminiscent to XXL listing off all the superstars under Dre's umbrella and noticeably missing out the Game, because the Game was also missing from that Super Bowl stage. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, more cap for you guys. The Game's reasoning for why 50 Cent kicked him out of G-Unit is because 50 Cent was, according to the Game, jealous that documentary by the Game was outselling 50 Cent's album at the time, Massacre, even though 50 Cent gifted the Game all his biggest hits. On a side note, I wonder how the Massacre would be regarded within 50's catalog and within hip-hop in general if he had all those massive songs from the documentary actually on the Massacre. Like, imagine the Massacre's hits, Candy Shop, Disco Inferno, just a little bit, plus if he had Hate It or Love It, How We Do, West Side Story, and Higher, and Piggy Bank, it'd be an instant classic. But I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here. Yeah, so the Game thinks that 50 Cent ended up banning him from G-Unit because he was jealous that documentary was outperforming the Massacre, even though it wasn't. And even though 50 Cent purposely pushed the album back so that the Game could have some shine with the documentary. I'm just trying to emphasize to you guys all the different times that the Game was capping throughout integral moments of his career. Because we could bring up some other random crap like his beef with Sean Kingston or Meek Mill or Lil Durk and point out all the little times that he's capped. But this is more so to emphasize that the Game has just constantly been a liar, and there's been several instances of Game lying that actually had ripple effects into the trajectory of his whole career. Of course, the split between G-Unit, that was one of them. The beef with Jay-Z, that would transpire within the Super Bowl. And while Game could have left it alone, and he kind of did at first, he was like, I'm just happy that this Super Bowl was able to go down. He eventually admitted that that was cap and that he was pissed off he was not selected to be there. He would say that he wanted to go on and diss 50 Cent because of this, but 50 Cent doesn't rap. So he had to go at Dr. Dre and Eminem. As far as Dr. Dre, he didn't say anything crazy disrespectful, but he did more capping in Game fashion by saying that Kanye West did more for the game in 2 weeks than Dr. Dre did in his entire career.
So when I say that Ye did more for me in those last 2 weeks than Dre did my whole career, it's like the conversations I had with Ye, the billionaire mindset that he put me in, the rooms that I walked in. Dre has never put me in those rooms. Absolutely more than Dre's done for me in my career, because I can remember being signed to Aftermath and being damn near broke. Not saying that was Dre's fault, but he wasn't putting on to no money.
Now, this is a straight up lie on so many different layers of levels. I mean, first of all, 3 years before saying this, the Game had a song, or he played a snippet on his Instagram of a song where he rapped, "I'm a goat. I held Kim Kardashian by her throat. I made her swallow my kids until she choked. I should apologize because Kanye's my folks." You guys get the picture. You think the man who really did the most for the Game in his entire career would be spoken to like this by the Game on record that he's premiering on his Instagram? It's also worth noting that Kanye West gave the Game 2 features throughout his entire career: Wouldn't Get Far and Easy. Neither of those songs cracked the top 40 of the Billboard charts. Meanwhile, again, Dr. Dre laced the Game with his debut single, How We Do, which hit number 4 on the Billboard charts and obviously gave the Game the ability to actually be able to have a real music career. And you're saying Kanye West did more for you in 2 weeks? Craziness, but he also needed another target. Dr. Dre wasn't enough, so he went at Dr. Dre's other protege, Eminem, who he initially said he wants no problems with. But of course, that's cap, because years later, he ends up dropping a 10-minute diss track aimed at Eminem.
Eminem is the only rapper that nobody ever wants a problem with, including myself, man. Eminem is like the most lyrically insane. He's one of the good MCs. And I used to think Eminem was better than me. He's not.
If he were to come at you with like a industry beef, what would you have done?
Run. Eminem is cool. You don't understand. I'm a hip hop artist, and I'm one of the biggest ones in the world. You don't want a beef with Eminem.
So the next target up from the Super Bowl stage is Kendrick Lamar, but the Game wouldn't actually end up dissing Kendrick. Instead, he would, oddly enough, jump into the Drake beef at the height of it for seemingly no reason at all, dropping a diss track against Rick Ross, who, if you guys don't remember, also jumped into that beef for no reason at all to drop a diss track against Drake. So by dropping that diss track against Rick Ross, the Game was pretty much obviously aligning himself with Drake in that battle, right? Which is kind of odd because Kendrick is from the West Coast. You're claiming you wanted to sign the guy early on in his career. You obviously have relationships with both artists. Why not just stay out of the whole thing, right? Well, this would backfire on the Game because in June of 2024, Kendrick Lamar would throw the Pop-Out concert, inviting everyone from the West Coast to celebrate with him, except obviously the Game. This would prompt the Game to go on a massive rant on Instagram, trying to justify his position and his legacy within the West Coast and explain to the world that people know his resume, people know who he is and what he's contributed, and whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny his greatness. He had to give you a 17-minute Instagram speech just to let you know this.
And I've been in this motherfucker since 2003, right? Because that's when I got signed to Aftermath, 2003. If you ask anybody, anybody that really know me that's in this motherfucker industry, and go ask Dr. Dre, man. Like, sit Dr. Dre down and really ask that about who I am and my character and, like what he really feel about me at the end of the day as a man. So if you could ask Nip himself, he would have told you, and he did tell you out his own mouth what, I contributed, to his career. Coming straight out of West Side, Cedar Block, Bompton, and Top Dog know what it is, Kendrick know what it is, Mustard know what it is, Ty Dolla $ign know what it is, Dr. Dre know what it is, Snoop know what it is, Red Rose, White Ceiling know what it is.
Now, what's crazy is throughout this rant, the Game even says that he was offered half of Top Dog Entertainment. Like, he could have went half on that record label. He could have been part owner of Top Dog Entertainment.
Top Dog wanted to motherfucking give me half of Top Dog. I didn't want nothing from Nick, though, bro. I just wanted to push Nick in the right direction.
The level of capping is crazy, you guys. And of course, it's popping its head back up on this new album rollout where the Game is now saying he was trying to sign Kendrick Lamar. More cap would come out because the Game also said him and Kanye were doing a Crack Music Part 2, And then literally 3 days later, it didn't appear on the track list to his new mixtape, and he admitted that it doesn't seem like the right time for that song. More cap on more cap. It's very frustrating being a Game fan, and it's probably even more frustrating being Game, because living with all this cap has gotten the Game in a lot of trouble. Now, I covered this in previous videos, but I'm going to bring it to you guys in a summarized way in this one, because these stories are absolutely insane, all right? Two insane stories, one kind of directly resulting in the other. Number one, the Game getting sued for exorbitant amounts to the point where he now may have to be homeless. And number two, that has resorted to the Game scamming potentially up-and-coming artists for feature verses. And the only reason why he has to pay so much in damages for the lawsuit to the point where he has to sell his house is because of the capping he did to the judge, or the lack of capping to the judge because he didn't show up to court. And the only reason why he now has to scam is due to the caps from the lawsuit, and now he's capping to up-and-coming artists. It's like a capception, a cap matrix. Multi-dimensions of cap, but yeah, let old rapaholics break down to you both these two situations because they're insane. In August of 2015, a brand new show premiered on VH1 titled She's Got Game. The show was a game dating show centered around the Game, where his friends in the industry brought forth contestants who would fight for the Game's love. It was kind of like The Bachelor meets Love and Hip Hop.
I lost the best thing that ever happened to me, but now I think I'm ready to find that special someone. And I'm gonna give her 100% of everything that I got.
Game is looking for love.
You're gonna step into my life and take this journey.
And he's bringing 10 lucky ladies along for the ride. She's Got Game. New series premieres Monday, August 10th at 9.
And if you thought this was hilariously ridiculous, so did I. But at least this game show kind of depicted the Game in the driver's seat. The last game show that the Game was on was before he was the Game. He was known as JT, but they probably should have called him SB for Sad Boy, because boy is this sad.
I want to be with my girl all day, every day.
I can't be with him 24/7. I'm sorry.
Sadida couldn't keep a promise if her life depended on it.
So what?
I can't get no loving in public.
No affection.
No holding
Because it
hands,
seems
no
like you
kiss,
always
no...
gotta.
But let's focus on 2015, where the Game has a little more confidence, maybe too much confidence, and he's no longer telling his woman to be a better girlfriend. Instead, women are fighting each other to be his girlfriend. That's the premise of the show. And one of these women, one of the contestants, she went by the name Priscilla Rainey. Now remember this name, because the Game was about to make it rainy all over her bank account very shortly. Now, before Priscilla Rainey had a reign over the Game's assets, she had a reign of terror over this Game show. Now, she would go on later to say that the entire show was scripted, even claiming she had been in a 7-year relationship that was on pause just so she could pretend to fight over the Game's heart. It was all for the bag, but she was depicted on the show as the quote-unquote fire starter.
What about you, fire starter? You good?
I'm good. No fire started today. So it sounds to me like they're trying to trash me in front of Jason to make me look like a fire starter. You know what? Let's go.
And as with every reality TV show, of course, there's a bunch of pent-up drama, and the Game is right in the middle of it, trying to figure out which one of these lovely actresses he will decide to make his fake girlfriend by the time the TV show ends. He didn't end up going with Priscilla Rainey, but you could see out of all the contestants, she was definitely one of the more drama-filled characters, to say the least.
It seems like the whole mess, the fight, is Priscilla's fault. And that ain't really sitting well with me. You got some girls who
Want me to go home, of course.
want you to go home.
I can't believe everyone's making such a big deal about me cussing out Sierra. She deserved it.
And this quote alone completely foreshadows everything that the Game would go through for the next 10 years.
I really like Priscilla, but something just don't feel right.
Now, while the drama and fighting, the conflict and the fire starting might have been all fake for the sake of the reality TV show, what was definitely not fake were the allegations made against the Game after this show had concluded. See, Priscilla Rainey was not chosen to be the winner of the battle for the Game's heart, but she won something much bigger. That'll now likely be much smaller. The battle of the Game's bank account. Priscilla Rainey sued the Game after the show concluded for an incident that had occurred off-set. According to the lawsuit, while filming in Chicago in 2015, the Game took Priscilla on an off-camera date at a suburban sports bar. There, the game allegedly assaulted her by repeatedly lifting up her skirt, grabbing her bare buttocks and her privates, and juggling her chest in front of a large crowd of onlookers. At one point during the evening at the sports bar, they were on an elevated stage in full view of all the club goers. With the stage lights shining on them, the game lifted Rainey's skirt and grabbed her bare buttocks and privates. She tried to break away, but he did it again, this time lifting her rear end and exposing, let's just call it her private parts, to the gawking crowd. As Rainey struggled to pull him away and lowered her skirt, he grabbed her bare intimate parts a third time. He also grabbed and juggled her chest for the entertainment of the onlookers. 3 days later, Rainey confronted the game about the assault. The two were on the show's tour bus with the other cast members and a film crew who caught the entire exchange on camera. The video begins with another contestant announcing that Priscilla Rainey had a secret date with the game, which would be considered cheating for the game show, and that the contestant returned to the hotel visibly upset. The game then reminded her that he had instructed her not to mention the private date to anybody, and quote-unquote, don't mention it means don't mention it. From there, a heated argument ensued. Priscilla repeatedly tried to tell him that she had a problem with what happened that night and was bothered by it, and the game angrily commanded her, what you can do is be a woman and shut up, like you can shut up right now. She did not shut up. Instead, she described the assault in graphic detail. And after a heated exchange, the game ordered her, get off this bus before you get your butt strangled, and then threatened to choke her up. In August of 2015, before the show's debut, Priscilla sued the game for battery in federal court in Chicago. But it gets worse, and it was really all the game's fault. He repeatedly evaded court-ordered service and otherwise tried to obstruct and delay the litigation. 5 process servers across 3 states made multiple attempts to serve him with the complaint and summons, and 1 process server alone made 41 unsuccessful attempts to serve the game at his California home. The district judge authorized alternative service. The judge set a settlement conference for June 16, 2016, and ordered both Priscilla and the game to appear in person. On June 2, 2016, the game requested to reschedule the settlement conference, claiming that he had concern for his safety based on Chicago's firearm violence problem. Keep in mind, the court appearance was meant to take place in Chicago, and at the time, the game felt unsafe to travel to Chicago, or at least that's what he told the judge, because again, this is around the time when he's beefing with Lil Durk.
Red rose, white silk. Red rose.
Because the game kept dodging court, never responded to the lawsuit, and instead denied all allegations, which we'll touch on shortly, Priscilla Rainey, who was demanding $10 million in damages within the lawsuit, wasn't exactly granted the full 10. But the judge did rule against the game by default because he never even responded to the thing to begin with. Instead, he got on Instagram and concocted a very long-winded, hate-fueled rant against Priscilla. And if he'd spend half this amount of time conjuring up his case in court, he might not be potentially homeless and scamming underground artists today. But check out what he had to say in a now-deleted Instagram post. Let's get one thing very clear. That thirsty Gatorade mascot of a TRANS vestite will never see $10 million or anything close to a penny of my money. People think they read a headline in bold print and that it's true. She won a judgment of $10 million. That means that a judge, because I'm overseas, has given this chick a chance to maybe be able to afford a lifetime supply of lace front hair glue if my lawyers don't respond to this suit by the 26th of this month, which they will do tomorrow morning. So as soon as I'm home, me and my lawyers will eat this case like a box of Minion Twinkies on sale at Walmart. VH1 has a separate lawsuit filed against them by this thought bot that they also will win because, number one, this girl's a liar. She has a history of theft, fraud, prostitution, arrests, and a lot of other TRANNY panty activities in her past that make this false claim irrelevant. Don't be fooled by these accusations or the dollar amount in the headlines because I put that on my favorite auntie's poodle. This broad ain't getting $1. Every girl on that show will tell you I never touched this chick or ever desired to be anywhere near her. She got kicked off the show, and as a result, she filed this lame lawsuit, which was probably her intentions before the show even started. She was begging for my attention the entire time we shot the show and was given the ultimate Major League Baseball curveball. So that upset her and made her little wee-wee hard. So she did what all chicks do when life gives her no other options. They sue you. This really is a crying shame. See you in court, Mr. Priscilla Rainey. And I say Mr. because your mustache is probably a bit longer than it was when we taped the show, because it's about to be spring, and that's when mine is usually at its healthiest.
I study
Minion Twinkies
for a living.
Now, it's pretty funny to me that the game goes on to call her Mr. and transvestite, saying she has a mustache, but again, you gotta remember, this is the same woman who was on his dating show, who he moved forward in the rounds and genuinely considered wifing up at least for the sake of the show. Now, while the game is out here defending his innocence, Priscilla Rainey is doing the press conference rounds as well, appearing on Power 105 to claim the entire show, the game show, was fabricated, fake. And of all the places she could have gone, ironically, she went to thisis50.com for a sit-down interview. And she detailed, what really went on with this entire situation through her eyes.
Let's clear that up now. I'm not screaming rape. He did not rape me. But what he did do is touch 3 times and told me shut the f up before I eliminate you, and then pulled my up in front of a crowd of people in Chicago at a club with the lights on and people taking pictures. To the point that 3 cameramen walked off set and quit because they got daughters and wives at home, and they said he's a piece of...
Now, these are some horrible allegations, and the craziest part is that the game did not take them seriously in the slightest. Again, he evaded court, evaded the lawsuit, treating it basically like it was frivolous or unquestionable that he would ever be found guilty. But after all that ducking and dodging, by November 14th, 2016, the case went to trial, and a jury began hearing both parties' testimonies, finally ruling in Priscilla's favor. In response, the game attempted to sue Viacom, the TV network that hosted his TV show, stating that the show's producers casted Priscilla Rainey despite a doctor's recommendation to exclude her from the program. The doctor reportedly cited Priscilla's past arrest, including for those for aggravated battery, as a reason for her not being mentally stable enough to be a participant of the show. And for those reasons, the game thought he was entitled to $20 million from Viacom, which included the payment he had been ordered to make against Priscilla, as well as an additional $13 million in damages. So essentially, the judge of this case had forced the game to pay Priscilla $7.1 million, primarily because he neglected the case to begin with.
Spicy.
Now, the game was probably not broke by any means, but $7.1 million payout? When you're a California resident, where I believe the tax rate is around 50%, that means he'd have to make about $14 million just to cover that payment. And now think about this, right? This was in 2016. How many projects have we seen from the game since 2016? How many business ventures have we seen him be a part of? How many tours has the game went on since 2016? Maybe I'm not following close enough, but I believe 2016 was when we really saw the game's career kind of slow down, right? Well, we'll touch on that shortly within this video. But you gotta think, unless he has some very serious investments or a lot of cash saved up, his professional and financial endeavors after 2016, when he was forced to pay this woman $7.1 million, did not seem fruitful enough to generate that amount of money in a short period of time. And it likely didn't, because by 2018, the game had requested and been denied a new trial in this S-assault case, with the judge slamming the game for failing to show up to the trial before, claiming that his actions towards Priscilla were deeply reprehensible. And with the denial of a new trial and him being forced to pay $7.1 million no matter what, the judge had forced the game to hand over financial documents to essentially prove or explain why he hasn't, at this point, been able to cough up the $7 million settlement. Priscilla Rainey had filed documents demanding the game turn over his assets and be held in civil contempt for not paying her those $7 million ding-dongs.
Red Rose, white
Ding-dongs. She says she's been working with third-party investigators and has proof that the game is hiding millions of dollars of income through different entities that he controls. And because of this, she wants him to speak under oath in court. The game obviously denied the allegations, and Priscilla continuously keeps filing requests to audit the game's financial records. The game loses his $20 million lawsuit against Viacom. Remember, he was suing them because they produced and aired the game's reality show, and they knew that this contestant, Priscilla, had some sort of mental issues and some criminal history in her past, but they chose to ignore it. So he sued them, $20 million. He ends up losing that lawsuit, and Viacom demands that the game cover their legal fees after he brought them to court. So he's just digging himself in bigger and bigger holes here.
Red Rose.
Bigger and bigger holes. Priscilla asks the judge to punish the game for dodging the subpoena that she sent in order to find out how much money he has so that she can finally collect her settlement. And she said that she subpoenaed the rapper's company, his weed company, Trees by Game LLC, to gain more info on all his assets. The company ends up having to give some of the profits to her to settle the $7 million debt. And it got to the point where the game was facing arrest, facing jail time, because he failed to declare his intentions to produce the 7-figure settlement sum that was required of him. Basically, he wasn't telling the courts, telling the judge how he was actually going to cough up this $7 million to Priscilla, so he was facing real jail time. and just a couple weeks after they got his financial documents, when he finally turned them over, in my opinion, this is one of the craziest financial turns of events we've ever seen in hip-hop history, because the judge seizes the game's record label and the royalties of his upcoming album, Born to Rap. So, in an attempt to collect her $7 million judgment against the game, Priscilla ended up taking control of the game's entire independent record label, La Prolific. She was granted any and all rights, title, and interest in any money, property, or future payments that were due or owed to the record label, which was set up to release the game's upcoming album in 2019, Born to Rap. And at the time, he was like promoting this album as if it was going to be his magnum opus or his final album ever.
Cap.
Album, are you paying attention to?
Now looking back 6 years later, we can see why he was trying to build up so much hype for that project. Priscilla had now become the owner of the album. She collected all the royalties that project generated, and even any salary that the game might have been paying himself through his record label, La Prolific. Absolutely insane. So basically, she's telling the judge, like, hey, I think the game is hiding money and I can't get him to cough up his financial records. Gets to the point where the game almost gets arrested for failing to comply with all this stuff. He finally does, I guess, hand over his financial statements. And the judge is like, okay, since I guess he's pretending like he's broke, potentially he's hiding his money, whatever the case is, he's got this independent record label and this weed company. So from now on, because the game owes this woman $7 million, she basically is entitled to all the profits that come in to his record label. So when he releases albums and those albums generate a profit, that's going right into her pocket, allegedly. But it doesn't stop there. So when they were conducting discovery to understand Game's financial situation, how he would, end up being able to cough up all this money to Priscilla, it had been revealed through that discovery that the game owns almost no assets under his own name, but he assigns his interest to receive revenue to his manager, aka Wack 100, Wack 100's company, and other game-old holding companies. Priscilla's lawyer had also accused the game of transferring his home to Wack 100 as a gift. And remember that because it'll play an important role very shortly. Now, over the next few years, Priscilla owning Game's record label, his weed company, that wasn't doing enough to actually put a dent in the $7 million he owes her, right? Because think about it logically, she owned the rights to his record label, his independent record label that was putting out his albums after 2019. Not his old catalog that was actually generating money, but albums like Born to Rap or 2022's Drillmatic. And I mean, it's also notable to think that ever since she started taking ownership of his entire record label, the game hasn't really been putting out that many albums like that.
Red Rose, White.
And if you want a quick run of the numbers, again, there's Drillmatic and Born to Rap. On Spotify combined, both those albums, again, combined, have a total of 312 million streams. Spotify pays around $5,000 on the high end per 1 million streams. So multiply 312 by 5,000, you get $1.5 million. Now, this is before all the money the game has to pay for all the features that were on those projects. It was funny because NBA Youngboy was actually on one of the albums, and Wack 100, the game's manager, had said they paid around $150K alone just for that NBA Youngboy verse, but because the song wasn't performing well, they had to remove the whole thing from the album, I guess, just to, make sure that they didn't lose money, and got their $150K back. So, put into perspective here, right? On the very high end, let's say the album was absolutely free to make, there was no expenses, both those albums, they only earned $1.5 million total. So the game would still owe Priscilla around $5.5 million. So she's trying to get that money, right? And the game, meanwhile, is online, literally continuously saying over the years that he's not going to pay her. But it doesn't matter what he says. It matters what the court says. And the court had actually approved Priscilla collecting the game's assets. So, by 2025, she had planned to seize the game's Calabasas home in order to recoup for the lawsuit settlement. It was actually 2024. I made a mistake. Because on October 7th, 2024, the game was scheduled to appear in court to argue against the possible seizure of his home. However, in typical game fashion, of course, he failed to appear in court on that day, but he continued fighting against the potential seizure of his home by asking the court to dismiss the order for sale of the dwelling, and he denied being personally served paperwork about the potential home seizure at all, basically saying like he was never actually subpoenaed to show up to court to argue why his house shouldn't be seized by this woman who he owes $7 million to. Meanwhile, she's accusing the game of transferring his home's deed to, again, Wack 100 to prevent it from being seized.
Red Rose, White Ceiling.
Seized. And throughout this time, in the meantime, the game does interviews where he emphasizes that he's absolutely broke. He said in a Vlad interview, everything I own is either rented or not in my name. I have not a penny to cough up to the lady who's been chasing me for now almost a decade. I'm broke. I don't have a dime. Well, he does, or I should say did, have a
white ceiling
Calabasas home. But according to All Hip Hop, in May of 2025, a judge had ordered the sale of the home to cover the $7.13 million judgment owed to Priscilla Rainey. After fighting this long battle for quite some time, Priscilla had calculated that the house should be worth around $3.2 million. Now, it's important to note WAC 100 would go on to deny this, but according to BET.com, his Calabasas home did end up being listed on the market for $4 million, so it looks like he was attempting to sell it. Crazy. And now, 6 months later, he's out here telling up-and-coming artists they can get a discount on a feature. Not just telling them that, going on his Instagram and promoting that he's doing like Black Friday, holiday-type promotions on Versus.
All independent artists from around the world, I don't care where you from, DM the GOAT, get you a motherfucking red rose, white ceiling.
And you might still be asking, how is this a scam, right? It's not that it's a scam. It's that there's no value in getting this verse from these artists because they're not actually giving you the cosign or giving you the promotion that you would need to get this song off the ground. We also looked at why would the game possibly be trying to scam for a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 from people who are a lot less wealthy than he is? Well, the game is looking to sell his home because he has to chalk up almost $10 million to a woman who sued him 10 years ago. So why is this a scam? Why would the game be scamming? We answered both those questions, but by far the worst situation to come out of this the game, asking young artists for features debacle, comes from an artist by the name of Lil Uzi Took. Now, there's this YouTube channel called Twisted Society. I'm going to play you guys a little clip of their video documenting the situation. They did a great job at breaking the whole thing down, but yeah, this is an absolutely absurd situation, which shows that, it's one thing if you're doing this with just a couple artists, if you're selective with the amount of features you do for these up-and-comers, because then it really means something to these guys, right? Like, if you're not doing features left and right, it's one thing. But when you're just asking anybody for any price to do any sort of verse without any real guarantee that you're going to put your stamp behind it, your brand behind it, that it could even get cleared 100%, then this stuff comes off as very predatory. Again, like you're taking advantage of these guys who are just maybe starstruck by seeing you in their DMs.
The game scamming, and he ended up scamming another artist that I've actually previously worked with before, known as Lil Uzi Took. He has a bit of a buzz going on right now, and it seems like the game also noticed that because he immediately hops in the DM saying, "Where you from? I see you working." He says, "Broward County. Thanks, I appreciate the love. I fuck with your music too." For a couple days, that's all there really is. A nice little interaction between two artists, an OG in the game reaching out to a young buck and telling him that he appreciates the work that he's putting in. But 6 days later, Lil Uzi Took decides to take a shot and immediately asks the game if he wants to do a song. Yo, what's up, game? I've been grinding. I got my connections to succeed. I bring good work ethic to the table. I'm very strategic with all my releases and marketing game plans. I know my career will elevate regardless. Currently, I'm not very profitable, but my career has been rising steadily, and with your help, I know I can be better. I like to set up a meeting if there's anything you can do to get me to the next level. And honestly, I feel like he's selling himself pretty well here. Usually I wouldn't recommend reaching out to bigger artists and asking them something like this, but since the game ended up reaching out to him first, I feel like there is a chance he might answer. And the game actually ends up responding saying, "You already know I'm always looking for artists to help promote and find real talent, So if you're down, let's do something." He said, "Let me know when and where, and I'm here. That's my number." He then goes on to send him an open verse as well as a small snippet so the game can listen to what the song sounds like and see if he really wants to jump on it. He responds to that by saying, "What's your budget, G?" And he says, "I got 4K right now, let me know." 4K, I mean, I definitely think that is worth it for a game verse, but that's definitely a lot of money. The game then responds by saying, "I got you with a feature for 4K, real low, let me know, got you, G, usually more, but fuck it, I got you if you're ready today." And low-key, that's a bit of a red flag right there. I feel like when artists say, "Oh, I usually charge more, but for you, I'm gonna do less," it means they're not really getting that many features bought on the daily. I feel like this is a tactic that a lot of artists use to basically make the other artists feel pressured into buying the feature. They're like, "Yo, you know what? Usually I charge 10K, but today I'm feeling really friendly, so for you, only 4K, but you absolutely have to buy it today." Because if they give you a couple of days to decide, you might talk yourself out of it, but by doing it this way, it basically becomes a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Oh my god, I love the game, I grew up listening to him, and this is my one chance to get on a song for him for a reasonable price. If I pass up on this today, then I'll never get the chance to make a song with him ever again. He then responds by saying, "Wow, thanks. Can we shoot the music video? I'll book a flight today. What's your preferred payment method? Let's get the feature out the way first, G. One step at a time. Zelle or Cash App on the payment. Let's do Zelle." So immediately Uli's trying to get that music video, which I think is a very good idea because after all, getting a simple verse from the game definitely won't do too much for you, but if you get the whole music video with him, that definitely could open some doors. But as you can see, the game is a little bit apprehensive and is immediately wanting that money. He goes on to send a Zelle, says, "Send screenshot when you're done and your number. Can we do PayPal? I don't use PayPal, G. That's great, I'll do Zelle." And that's immediately another red flag because after all, if you use PayPal, you might be able to get your money back, but with Zelle, I don't think you can. He says, "Alright, G, send screenshot of payment. Bet, I'll send tonight. I thought you was ready, G. I'm ready. The cash is in the safe. I'm making moves right now. As soon as I'm at the crib, I'll deposit it and send it. Definitely by today. I bet. And then the game starts to get a little bit impatient, and he ends up responding a couple hours later saying, what's good, G? I got you in 2 hours, no cap. My bad. I've been hella busy. For supposedly rich and very popular rapper, he definitely seems to be pretty antsy about getting that $4,000. I'm not really saying anything here, but it's definitely a little bit sus. And then 2 hours later, the game starts to get upset by saying, let's go. Yes, sir. On the way to deposit the cash right now. Yo, what's your cash app? Zelle has a maximum limit I can spend. He then sends his cash app and says, screenshot the payment when you're done for records along with your phone. He then goes on to send a couple more opens as well as sending the screenshot proving that he sent $4,000 to the game for that feature. Oh my god, that's a lot of money. The game then responds by saying, what's your cash app name? He says payment sent and beat and verse, links are above. He then goes on to send his name. He responds by saying, send song with open verse, MP3 form to my Gmail, put your IG name and subject and 8 bars. What's your number? He then shows his number and the game says, send this to me. Feature, IG name, email, number. The game then goes on to say, send this here, G. He says, my engineer is adding the beat to the verse right now. Alright, G. He sends all this information. Let me know when you send the email, G. The engineer said he'll need another 30 minutes. He on the way to the stew right now. Okay, let me know. 30 minutes later, the song is complete. He sends it to the game. The game says locked in, G, and everything seems good. And Uli Took even ends up tagging the game on his story but doesn't get a response. And then after that, an entire 20 days go by. On August 1st, he says, yo, not to rush you, just wanted an update on the feature. When you think it's gonna be ready? 5 days after that, let me know. And well, you know the story by now. He goes ghost, no response. He ended up seeing that story post, but after that, he never sees any more of the messages, and he never gets him his money back. He never gets him the song, and he took over $4,000 from Uli Took. Now, could this have been a misunderstanding? Possibly. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that it's not.
So yeah, all in all, this situation is absolutely cooked. As I was doing research for this video, I realized there was another instance of the game potentially scamming, and it actually answered a lot of questions for me because I had always wondered as like a younger kid in high school or whatever, why the game never did a concert in my hometown in Canada. I mean, growing up, we had like Rick Ross here, D.I., Jeezy was supposed to come, but there was a shooting outside the venue. People from the generation before the game, I mean, I just saw 50 Cent like 2 years ago. Nas and Wu-Tang were here recently. Back when the game was, you know, still a big rapper, you had a bunch of other rappers who were smaller than him, like Kid Cudi, Big Sean, Meek Mill. There's been a bunch of rappers who were able to come to Canada, no problems. The game has never been here, at least when I was growing up, and I realized, allegedly, it's because he actually scammed a rapper by the name of JB way back in the day. Basically, the song that JB had sent the game, that he paid the game for a feature for, contained a Michael Jackson sample, so there was some clearance issues there, but the game ended up using the song, taking the artist who paid him for a feature off of the song, took JB off the song, and put it on one of the game's own mixtapes. And apparently, according to Friday from We Love Hip Hop, the game has not been to Toronto ever since this incident and actually reached out to that same rapper recently because now he's looking again to do features with up-and-coming Canadian artists and asked the guy again for a feature. And when the guy, JB, texted the game back like, oh, why don't I just book a Canada tour for you instead? Implying, you know, the game might have some issues coming to Canada. You could tell it was like some AI or someone managing and running games DMs because the game just immediately goes back to start talking about features, doesn't even acknowledge the guy's message. So someone is running the game's Instagram to try and milk as many features as they could possibly get.
I'm looking to do 5 features with Canadian artists. Only 5. DM me if you're ready. It reminded me right away of the story of JB. What ended up happening is they took JB off of the song. It's his song that he got the game to feature on. He paid him money for. They took JB off of the song, and game had it with just his Black Wall Street guy that he was with at the time on the song. And he put it on a mixtape. Like, he took the man off of his own song. He has not been on Toronto soil since. However, this going on with the game right now, he hit up other people. He hit him up and said, yo, let's work. Recently. Yesterday. Says, salute, my G. Can you cross the border? Let's me book a Canada tour for you guys. He's like, let me get you on tour. And then this is his response. Right here is hard. Let's talk about it, about me doing a remix on it. Or let's do a fresh feature on a song you have done already. That's not released yet. Or posted in and I'll post it in my stories. So the man asked him about one thing, and the response is a canned response like, yo, let's do a feature. It's AI game. Yes.
Man, so as you guys can see, a long history of cap. I brought you guys all the way back to the early days of the game's career, which was a very exciting moment in hip-hop. Drop a comment if you want me to cover more of the G-Unit days or the early 2000s. But yeah, as you can see, just like red rolls and white ceilings, just like name-dropping exorbitantly, lying has always been a part of the game's creative DNA. And has that stopped his legacy from being regarded as highly as it probably should be relative to his skill set? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.